Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Scorpion Swarm by Michael Cole, narrated by P.J. Ochlan. Chapter 1. He saw smoke rising from the engine. John Ray closed his eyes and opened them again. He was on his back, roughly 15 feet from the overturned Dodge pickup truck. He didn't even remember hitting the ground. He just remembered the black, jointed shapes emerging from between the thick rows of Green Island ferns. Then there was the impact. That huge, sudden impact. It was supposed to be a routine trip, like his team had performed every few weeks under the supervision of Virgil. It was a simple assignment. Go to the ridge and discard the failed lab remains. Their leader and his second-in-command would manage the facility and the hostages they kept. John Ray thought he had been blessed with a sunny morning. Golden rays illuminated the road, paved several weeks ago by their construction team. But that sunlight shined down on more than dirt road and island flora. They had seen the black pits, burrowed deep into the earth. They hadn't been to the ridge in 2, maybe 3 weeks. But John Ray knew those pits were not there before. Even Virgil took notice of them, and he wasn't the type to pay attention to inconsequential things, such as holes in dirt. What worried them more was there was no sign of the patrols. There were supposed to be men all over the island. Every time John Ray left the facility on an assignment, he always passed one of the patrols. But today, they saw nobody in passing. They saw no animals either. Usually they would have to shoot a deer or warthog that would get in their way. But today, the island offered them no friendly company. Then they got to the chasm. The ambush was sudden. The team was not aware of the danger until 2 of their comrades had been taken. It was as though they were being ambushed by evil spirits. Then he saw them. They were not spirits, though to him they may as well have been. They were demonic enough. Enormous creatures that up until now only existed in his nightmares. They attacked with a series of snapping claws and lashing tails, dripping a soupy substance from the barbed tip. Per Virgil's command, John Ray boarded the bed of the truck with another of his comrades and provided cover fire with his AKM. They were relentless. They chased them relentlessly with no sense of fear. They were locked on, like a homing missile to a target. Then came the drumming. The earth shook beneath the wheels of their truck, jittering the vehicle as it sped. All John Ray saw was the black shell and the flickering appendages. The impact was hard and sudden. The vehicle flipped, and he was airborne. The truck lay on its left side, teetering slightly toward him. Its engine clunked and sputtered. He could see the passenger wheels up in the air. They were still spinning, slowly coming to a stop. He had only been out for a minute at most. He remembered the army of creatures that chased them. Adrenaline soared through his veins, clearing his fuzzy vision. He looked down the road. He couldn't see past the bend, which was roughly 100 feet down. However, he could hear those dreadful hisses. He scrambled to his feet and turned around in search of his rifle. It had been flung from his hands when the truck flipped. Where it landed, he had no idea. He felt a tightening of a grab along his shoulder. John Ray yelped and spun back, ready to draw his knife. "Steady yourself!" Virgil shouted, blocking John Ray's draw by pinning his wrist. He instantly recognized his commander's rugged face. Blood trickled between the hairs of his thin brown beard and spilled onto his tactical vest. The crash had busted the windshield and cut his face. But Virgil had greater concerns than cuts and bruises. "Where's your rifle?" John Ray shook his head. "Lost it in the crash." He looked up past the truck. The echoes of feet drumming against the earth vibrated between the trees. Those things were still out there. Virgil shouldered his rifle and pressed into the jungle. He reached the tree line and glanced over his shoulder back at John Ray.
"You coming? Or would you rather wait here and personally greet those things before they disembowel you?"
John Ray pulled his Glock 19 and started following Virgil into the jungle. He glanced about, confused and still slightly disoriented. "Where is Jerome? And Daniel?" Virgil waited until they entered the jungle to answer. He swept the forest with the muzzle of his rifle, looking for movement of any kind. So far, there was nothing but bright green forest and golden sun. He pressed further in. He spoke in a whisper.
"Only the one attacked."
John Ray shuddered, thinking of the wall of black that struck the truck.
"It busted right through the windshield and got Daniel and took him into the jungle. It didn't wait for me. I crawled through the windshield and saw Jerome running this way, like a coward."
John Ray brushed the elongated leaves of bush from his face as they pressed further in. With guns pointed, they weaved between the trees and other obstacles the island had to offer. Each step was taken with caution. John Ray nervously watched the thick bushes, worried about what may be waiting behind them.
"Sir, if I may be so bold—" "Spit it out!" Virgil snapped.
"Our visibility is drastically affected out here. Would it not be safer to follow the road? It's open and we can see them coming."
"Did you not see what you were aiming at?" Virgil said. "They were able to keep up with the truck. Clearly they're faster than us on foot. We'll never outrun them. In the jungle, an obstacle for us is an obstacle for them."
John Ray didn't argue. If Virgil thought this plan was best, then it was best. Several loud hisses pierced the air. The guerrillas turned on their heels and pointed their guns toward the road. There was too much terrain in the way for them to see, but they could hear the scurrying of arachnid legs scraping the dirt road. John Ray backed up. The commander was right. Following the road was no option. Loud cracks popped in the distance. Rifle shots behind them. Both men turned back around. Several more shots rang out, all in 3-round bursts.
"Jerome!"
Virgil said. They couldn't see him. From the echo of the shots, he had to be a couple of 100 meters ahead. The two men sprinted at full speed. There was a brief pause in the shooting that lasted 5 seconds. Then it started up again. Jerome had reloaded. No, these were different. Single shots, slightly shallower. He had switched to his pistol. Thick leaves struck his face as John Ray followed Virgil through the jungle. He tucked his chin down and absorbed the blow from a branch with his forehead, scraping his scalp as he passed under it. He looked up, only to see another in his way. He sidestepped to avoid it, turning his gaze to the left. He paused, seeing the anomaly in the side of a small hill. What the? It was another of those strange tunnels. Its oval-shaped entrance was 6 feet wide. It was deep. The edges were marred with a strange saliva substance. The crack of another gunshot focused him to his task. He turned around, immediately noticing Virgil's displeasured gaze.
"You through sightseeing?"
Another series of gunshots echoed through the jungle. These were much closer. There was another shot, this one even closer. Running feet pounded the ground, accompanied with the sounds of labored breathing. The leaves of 2 thick bushes folded away like theater curtains as Jerome burst through them. Blood fell freely from the tears in his shirt. His face was discolored, his mouth foaming. His run reduced to a drunken stumble.
"Jerome! Where are they?"
Virgil barked. Jerome stumbled, overcoming the sluggishness that was overtaking him. He tried to speak, but his words were a jumbled mess. Virgil pointed his rifle, seeing the puncture wound in his comrade's side. Then the hisses came, and with it the rustling of leaves. They could see the black shape rising high on its legs behind Jerome. Its tail coiled and tilted back like the hammer of a revolver. Then, as if a trigger had been pulled, it sprang forward. The curved barb hit Jerome in the back, arching him backward. Pincers, black as hell, closed down over his shoulders. Jerome disappeared in a jolting motion, immediately disappearing beyond the jungle. Virgil discharged the weapon. A spray of bullets tore through leaves before embedding in scattered locations in the terrain ahead. He ejected the empty mag and snatched a fresh one from his vest. He reloaded and faced John Ray.
"Double back! We need to—"
John Ray's eyes were wide with fright. He pointed his pistol upward and fired, bringing the commander's orders to a halt.
"Look out!"
he shouted. Virgil glanced up and around. When he saw it, he realized his logic of retreating through the forest was flawed. What was an obstacle for them was an asset to those beasts. The creature was perched high in the tree, its spider-like legs coiled underneath. It leapt with a tremendous arch, claws drawn back and ready to snap like scissors. Virgil pointed his rifle, but it was too late. It landed atop of him, driving him onto his back. He yelled, spitting blood from lungs impaled by busted ribs. Then came its tail. It arched over its head, dripping the syrupy substance from the tip of its barb. John Ray fired with shaky hands until he emptied the magazine. He wasn't sure if he even hit the thing. The barb had sunk deep into the commander's shoulder. Virgil struggled for several seconds, spitting blood mixed with a white foam. Soon his movements were rigid, as though he was hit with a taser. A moment later he was limp on his back, staring blankly at the sky. Virgil was gone. John Ray frantically tried to press a fresh magazine into his pistol. Giving in to panic, he turned around to run. In the chaos, he had already forgotten about the oval-shaped tunnel. He didn't even complete the first step before the black shape sprang from its entrance. John Ray screamed while squeezing the trigger of his empty pistol. Razor-edged pincers clamped down on both arms. The creature raised high on its legs and twisted his body, wrestling him to the ground. The sting of its tail brought the struggle to its conclusion. It took a few seconds for the venom to take effect. Like a dying battery, the soldier felt the strength leaving his body. Then came pain, in the form of extreme muscle stiffness. He waited, praying for eternal sleep to take him. But it never came. He was looking up at the sky. He tried to blink, but couldn't. He tried to move, but couldn't. He tried to talk. He tried anything and everything, but did nothing. All he could do was think, see, hear, and feel. And the feelings came in the form of pain. The stinger lifted free from where it impaled his chest. There was the sound of it stepping around. Its shadow covered his face. Then he felt tightness as the claws gripped his shoulders. Then there was movement. His back slid along the ground, grinding dirt and grass underneath him. He watched the canopy seemingly passing overhead. That canopy disappeared from view, blocked by the dark edge of the tunnel. Then there was darkness, and the feeling of dirt and wetness against his back as he was dragged deep into the lair. Chapter 2. The man in black stared at him. In his 20 years of being a private contractor, Rob Cashin had been approached by thousands of clients. More often than not, it was always a man dressed in black. In this case, the man in black simply went by the name of Jason. It was a common Filipino name, and Rob doubted that was really his. Nor did he care. He wasn't here to make friends. Jason was an average-sized figure, a couple inches shorter than Rob's 6-foot height. It wasn't often that the client representative tagged along this far into the mission. Then again, it made sense. That was the case with dealing with government entities. They always wanted to make sure the work was getting done right. "The payment has been processed," Jason said to Rob. He held up the screen of his iPhone, revealing bank numbers and a 7-figure dollar amount. "The remainder will be transferred to your offshore account upon completion of the task." "It will be done," Rob said. He spoke with pleasure. This was a job he would happily do for free. The money was an added bonus. He tightened his parachute harness over his tactical gear and clipped it together. 10 minutes to drop off," the captain announced from the cockpit. "I'll leave you to it," the man called Jason said. "When you eliminate the threat, you can contact us with this." He gestured to another man dressed in a Philippine military outfit. The soldier extended his hand, holding a large satellite phone. "Nobody can track this signal. I want you to call us with this. No radio." "Customer service is my forte," Rob said. He turned around and joined his team. They had gathered near the ramp door of the C-130 Hercules. A bunch of adrenaline junkies, they were all eager to make their dive. There was no weak link among them. There was Muddler, whom the team praised as their mascot. Being the only female on the team had its perks. But there was more to her than her looks. She could track a termite through marshlands, light a match with a sniper round, and knock 3 teeth out of a dude in a bar brawl. Then there was Stroud, Steele, and Valentine, or as Rob referred to them, the Three Stooges. If more than an hour went by without them cracking immature jokes, Rob would think one of them had gone missing. But they were good fighters, all former Army airborne. They got out of the service with the same story and desire. They were naturals at warfighting and wanted to make serious money doing it. Standing near the back was Yellowstone, the heavy weapons and explosives expert. Rob often liked to call him the team mule. Being 6'7" and 260 pounds of lean muscle, Yellowstone often carried any heavy equipment when a vehicle wasn't handy. In this case, it was the fireworks, otherwise known as C4 and bazookas. Standing beside him was Myung-dae. Only Rob could pronounce his name correctly. Everyone else knew him as Tire Man, a name acquired from his service in the North Korean military before he defected. When he wasn't ordered to point his rifle at the South, he would serve as a mechanic on trucks and heavy equipment. Stroud held the map in a crumpled mess. Rob snatched it out of his hand and flattened it out the best he could. In the middle of the wrinkled mess was the outline of an island. Rob glanced back at the mercenary, who crossed his muscular arms over his sleeveless vest. "It's still an improvement over your face," Rob quipped. The team erupted into laughter. "Aw, nothing could improve this little baby face." Muddler elbowed Stroud in the ribs and pinched at the indentation in his right cheek. A forever reminder of a bullet he almost literally ate during his USMC days. "Don't get all girly on me, Muddler," Stroud said. "Why? You still hoping to pick up Valentine?" "Look at that! You're making him blush!" Roger Steele called from across the aisle. He adjusted his ball cap and rested his hand on his machete handle. Valentine spit chewing tobacco on his boots and tapped a fist against the black heart drawn over his vest. Steele chuckled. "You call it a black heart. I just call it a shit stain."
"All right, you freaking monkeys," Yellowstone said. "Let the old man speak."
All eyes turned to Rob.
"Hey, Pops, is the payment through or what?"
Stroud said. Rob snickered. At 55, he was by far the oldest in the group. Of course, to all these knuckleheads in his team, anything over 40 was considered old. But it was all good fun. He enjoyed the banter with his team. Their camaraderie was second to none, and he knew they always had each other's backs.
"Yes, the payment is through," Rob said. "Just stay alive through the mission, Stroud,
and you can go back to your strip club splurge.
Not sure if they'll invite him to the ladies' club,
Tire Man added. More laughter passed through the team. Rob glanced over his shoulder, noticing a disapproving glare from the man in black. Like most of them, he seemed to lack a sense of humor. 7 minutes to drop off, the pilot announced.
All right, ladies,
and Muddler, Rob said. He unfolded the crinkled map, displaying the outline of the island they approached.
This is our destination. It's called Hollow Mauna, means Hollow Mountain.
The team huddled together and gazed down on the destination. It was about 20 miles in diameter. Like many islands, it was oddly shaped, with a peninsula to the northwest and an increase in elevation toward its center.
Looks like a pork chop,
Yellowstone said.
Everything looks like food to you, you powder monkey,
Stroud said. That'd be a moldy pork chop, Steele said, pointing his finger at the green landscape.
You all know the target,
Rob continued. Just to be somewhat formal, he slapped down the picture of the target. All smiles faded from the group as they gazed at the square-jawed face of the man who had killed their teammate a year prior.
Finally, we're gonna get that bastard Isagana,
Muddler said.
We're gonna get him. Best part is, we get to kill him,
Rob said.
And get paid to do it,
Steele said.
As we've learned from our last encounter, Isagana has built up his own private terrorist organization called the Red Cobras. Since we've killed his boss, he's now the head honcho. We're not sure how many men he has, but Filipino intelligence believes they've got at least 100, and probably getting funding from an outside source.
Iran? Yellowstone said.
Don't know,
Rob said.
Not our concern. But what does concern us are the scientists they are holding hostage. Not sure what Isagana's up to, but knowing him, it's something sick.
What kind of scientists?
Muddler asked. Rob glanced back to the man in black, allowing him to take the floor.
Geneticists, gene splicing specialists, chemists,
Jason said, speaking with his arms crossed.
Dr. Bischoff is the head researcher here. His goal was to develop new ways to produce food in barren wastelands. What Isagana wants him for, we're not exactly sure.
Isagana and most of his force should be in the research facility, which lies roughly 8 miles inland from the dock area here.
Rob pointed at a flat beach area south of the peninsula. He looked up at Muddler, Yellowstone, and Tire Man.
That's what you're gonna hit. Eliminate any boats they have. Prevent any means of escape. Meanwhile,
he glanced to the Three Stooges.
You goofballs will parachute first with me. We're approaching from the east and hooking southward. We'll parachute down to their stronghold on the peninsula. Reports say they have construction equipment here, probably to build a runway. There's a radio tower here as well. We'll eliminate that and keep them from calling for help. As I've said, they're probably getting funding from another source.
Rob wrapped up the map and took a step back, looking at his team as a whole.
Any questions?
The team stood silent. Finally, Steele raised his hand.
These researchers, any of them hot?
Rob smirked. Not sure. But don't worry, I'm sure Yellowstone will be obliged to tend to your sore ass.
What the hell?
The explosives specialist said, taken aback by the sudden snipe. The group laughed as both he and Steele raised a middle finger.
3 minutes, the pilot announced.
You heard him. Get your gear and prepare to jump. Now.
Rob's voice was serious this time. He was on what they called business mode. No more jokes. He secured his H&K 416 and tightened the strap on his helmet before taking his stance 10 feet from the ramp. Steele switched his cap for his helmet, then lined up directly behind Rob, while Stroud and Valentine stood on the other side of the aisle. Muddler and her team stepped back and awaited their jump. The alarms beeped, and 2 red lights spiraled. The ramp let out a screeching whine as it lowered. The wind tugged on their clothes. Muddler stood behind the first team and tucked her hair under her helmet. Up front, Rob waited for the countdown. He sealed his glasses in one of his pouches and replaced them with his goggles. He stood ready, watching the gray-blue sky directly outside and the blue tint of the Pacific Ocean below. 30 seconds, the pilot's voice echoed in their headsets. They could feel the C-130 Hercules turning to starboard. The military man, strapped to the side rail, approached the edge for the final countdown. "Remember," Jason yelled over the wind. One of the officers gave him a headset and a mic. He placed it on, then continued. "We'll be keeping radio silence until you notify us. Keep in mind, we're not really here." Rob gave a thumbs up. "Yes, I know." It was the same chorus he heard from every government official he contracted for. The military officer began the countdown. 10, 9... The ramp had opened completely. Rob could see the west edge of the island, surrounded by ocean water. He leaned forward, ready to sprint. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Rob dashed over the ramp and jumped. Arms over his head, he free fell down to Hollow Mauna. Chapter 3. Rob embraced the feeling of weightlessness as he descended down to earth. Wind tugged at his outfit and gear and whished in his ear. He passed through several cloud layers, swishing the vapor into twisting shapes. From 5,000 feet high, the island looked like a large green rock. He could see its entire outline. It matched the image on the map almost perfectly. The center was a huge mountain, covered entirely in thick jungle. Directly below him was the Northwest Peninsula. The island grew larger as he closed in on it. After a minute, he could no longer see its overall shape. The fine details of the various species of trees came into view. He needed to wait until he hit 500 feet before deploying his chute. Too high, and he would alert the terrorists near the construction site. He could see the tower nearly a quarter-mile to his left. It stood along the tree line, overlooking a barren section of the peninsula. As their intel indicated, the Red Cobras had some construction in the works. Rob took a moment to look up. High above him were 3 dots descending like meteors from the plane. Muddler, Yellowstone, and Tireman had timed their jump just right and were on track for landing near the dock. Looking down, he almost couldn't see the ocean. Below him was nothing but green canopy. It was time. So far, the jump had gone perfect. They were about a quarter-mile inland. At this range, the trees would conceal their chutes from the view of the terrorists at the construction site. Rob pulled his cord, launching his parachute. The ripstop nylon spat out the pack and expanded, slowing his fall drastically. Rob straightened out, now floating feet down above the trees. His 3 teammates pulled their chutes and gradually glided in circular motions, like vultures hovering over a carcass. Their feet grew steadily nearer to the trees. They were 30 feet above them now. Rob braced for impact, lifting his feet to help control his descent. Their chutes would get caught up in the branches, forcing them to climb down. It was part of the plan, as stealth was a major factor in overtaking this enemy. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept over the peninsula, dragging their parachutes along with them. "Shit," Rob muttered. It was like an invisible hand had grabbed hold of him. He tried to angle the parachute to redirect himself, but the winds had already launched him eastward, right toward the edge of the cliff. It only lasted a few seconds, but was enough to turn their landing into a chaotic mess. He saw Valentine snag on the top branches of a tree. Steele and Stroud were still circling behind him. Right now, all Rob could do was focus on himself. He pulled on the straps to steer himself back into the interior of the peninsula, but the momentum was too great. The parachute spun, swinging Rob over the trees. A moment later, he realized there were no trees under him. He had passed over the canopy line and was now over a cement runway. 100 feet beyond that was the cliff edge.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?